is usually the quiet day where I get to reflect upon the week and talk about things that have happened in the week in a way that is not so FOMO induced and driven. But today we have the Otherside second trip. So the height of FOMO, it's the Super Bowl of FOMO is happening today on my show day. So I wanted to roll with it and have fun with you guys and bring on some friends to talk about strategies with the other side. There's so much conjecture and theories, and they stem from two different camps, right? They're from the other side camp where you have the trial of Jimmy, which again, if you follow the show, we've been incorporating that meaning is very, very different. It's not a trial in my point of view as like the dude's going to jail. It's a trial meaning we're in a trial, like the trip is a trial. And so these trial trips, I think are the Gordon Goddard mentioned this, that nobody had been quite interpreting the trial right, because it's not a court case. It's not like the dude's going to jail. The dude stuffed a key up his rear, and now that's not a treasonable offense, if you will. But we've been grinding out IRLs at ETH Denver and NFT LA, between that and South by Southwest. So if you've been attending all of those and you're watching this, you are definitely sleep scrolling right now, or you have a serious amphetamine condition and you should see some specialists. But we want to check in with our amphetamine specialist, Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny, are you with us in the metaverse? Let's check in with you. I think we're getting rugged, Bed Bunny. We're going to check in with Bed Bunny in 2 seconds here. All right, other side special. Let me see if we can reach out into the metaverse for Bed Bunny. This is the fun of doing this all by yourself, guys. Scene. Bed Bunny, can you hear us? Hello, it's me, Bed Bunny. Buenos dias. CZ, I've been doing a lot of partying in these IRLs. It's very fun to go and visit the people and to have the sexual relations with them and to do the cocaine with them. Wait, hold on, you're what? I mean, we know you party, Bed Bunny, but the coke and the sex. I mean, I don't really think of that when I think of Web3. Oh, it's very, very central to Web3. But I got to be careful with my cocaine these days. I had a fentanyl tester installed into my pinky here because it's crazy times right now. Wait, you suspect that Web3 partygoers would use cheap fentanyl substitutes? Web people will burn down an entire NFT collection on Blur as a side hustle, my friend. Have you seen how proud Franklin is to make 0.0001 ETH on a trade? Yeah, well, I guess this week, like I said, there's a lot of hustle and FOMO going on, that carries over from the IRLs that we've been seeing all week into something that is playable by everyone all over the world on a browser without downloading, without having these high specs in order to participate. The last trip had 4,600 people attending. It's going to be very, very interesting to see who's attending this time around, and I think it's going to be very, very interesting. Pardon me, to see that on the second trip that they're going to be elucidating a lot of the different ways to play, and so there's a lot of different potential ways to play the game now. Again, we may talk costs and play in certain ways, but this is no way financial advice. 100% of this is like bad jokes in conjunction with really weird 3D avatars. So, I'm down bad. 3D NFT bad. When you start giving not giving a crap, and your idea of building is with a crazy show like this, and so. we've been covering the other side for a while, and especially, mentioned it, about 3 months ago, when the Coda floor was around, 10K. But now, as we talked about, it's about as much as a mutant, given, how ETH is gone, and how, let's see, where's that? Boom. How some of these just want to make sure we're getting the right ones. These, and again, there's so much material here to look at on the visuals. And welcome to the video show. Thank you guys for joining there. And our next guest should be arriving quite soon. But until then, I wanted to review how these two worlds are coming together. The two worlds of Wagmi-san over at 10KTF Shop and the trial of Jimmy the Monkey, from the other side. And so from the other side meta, you have, a trailer. And I think that, LinkedIn here, at LinkedIn, did a very, very clear illustration. When we're looking at the 10KTF trailer, we're getting this, breaking up of New Tokyo. So New Tokyo is breaking up. I thought that NTEC, New Tokyo Electric Company, was supposed to be fixing things, but it's all falling apart. And as we went through the portal, things are being pulled apart. And so when you have things being pulled apart, you say, okay, how does this apply? It's sort of easy to see how this applies to the and graft onto the other side maps of the land, and we'll go over that in a second. But here's another sort of secret too. It's like, remember this, remember how it's spread out like this, and I'm going to show you guys the map, and again the potential positioning of New Tokyo, and I think that is super, super important because that means that there's going to be added lands to other side, which we know is coming. We know there's going to be another 100,000. And so, but the placement of that, where does it go? And I have some theories because we know that Animoca is leading this development. And Animoca has had a history of doing these types of things, and they've had a very MO, a very, very strong MO of how they apply new lands. And so we imagine, okay, 10KTF, New Tokyo is being pulled apart, and then on the bottom there of the trailer, we could see an obelisk, and the obelisks are very, very present. On the other side, they're core. This is something that we've been seeing a lot of in 10KTF from some of the even Boss Toad's summoning of a kaiju. Had these very obelisk types of things, with the glowy lights, and so. But here you have the perfect, strong connection. Make no doubt whatsoever that you have. Sorry, I just want to check on my stream there. There's no doubt that this is connected in a strong way, and it's giving us a visual indicator as to how it's going to be connected, because we know that point 00, and so here's Punk 78 did a screen capture of the event on Thursday from 10KTF, where they showed the fragmentation of New Tokyo, and just with these very, very key hints here, right? 893, 420, I think is a joke. 000, that is an actual coordinate. And these are the things. Like, I looked at and checked on these coordinates. I don't think that these are specific coordinates, but I think that they are indicative of certain areas. And so just the idea that it's going to fragment, 420 actually is on a cusp area, which is part of my theory. So perhaps this plays in when we look at the map together. But remember these numbers. 893 is reference to the Kagami holders, the mirror that's right behind me over here. This Kagami that is, it's just showing me like these moments from season 1, and hasn't given off any power, or hasn't, coughed up any ApeCoin or anything at this point yet, but we don't know exactly what they do. We just know that there is, in addition to the physical, there is still an NFT that remained, and that NFT that has remained has from my perspective, gone completely bonkers, because I don't even understand why. Like something that we would use as a physical, it was sort of astonishing that I was like, oh, okay, great. We still get another, we retain the Kagami NFT after we got our physical. So it wasn't a burn. It wasn't a burn like the hoodie. The hoodie was a burn, gone. The Kagami remained. And so the Kagami remained to the point where people were beginning to sell it on the secondary market. And then people began to suspect, well, if we're going to retain it, there's value within that. And value in that ecosystem, in that limited number of 893, seems very valuable. And, when you start working on sort of the speculation of it, it's hard not to get caught up in, especially when they're mentioning 893 here, when we're talking about lands, we could be talking about potential land grants from the 10K TF side. And if this plays out the way that I think it's going to play out, given that these might potentially be coordinates, because 0000 is the center, and 0000 is the yacht club, and so here are the obelisks, and so the obelisks. This is something that I think was overlooked as well, and I'll jump into the map in a second because we got some time here. The first trip had an obelisk, and it's something that I don't think should be overlooked. The 4,600 of those, I've seen those lands at floor. And I think that if you look at what is being built with the codex and the origins and the growth, these obelisks are part of a set. And so this obelisk here is represented in your NFT. And if you go to your NFT, you'll see that it has an obelisk in there if you click on it. So if you go to the viewer, sorry, I need to load mine up. Jeez, I've been so busy this morning. But once you click on that NFT, if you go to the viewer in the other side and you go to your viewer, you click on it, it'll flip and then it'll show you your status of all the codecs that you have acquired so far. Everyone, of course, having only the first trip. But to me, that's a very crucial part if you're collecting. And who knows what it gives and what it grants, but certainly in this world we're going to want everything we can get, any advantage that we can get, because they're slow playing a lot of the details. And when you read the Otherside light paper, I highly recommend it. It gives you, I don't want to say all the alpha, but it definitely gives you the ideas that you need to understand when you're looking at the marketplace. And so you're looking at the marketplace, you see all these traits, and you're like, okay, what do I do with the resources? Well, the resources are a clear play. What are the clear plays? Artifacts, 100%. Artifacts, we know from the light paper, are things that only exist there. They're not going to be able to be created. So artifacts are rare indeed, because they're not going to be able to be manufactured with any of the other elements. So according to the light paper, they're just the standalone things that you can actually part out of your land and trade. And so there's going to be a marketplace that they're developing, and I think that's probably more, down the line here in terms of the obelisks achievements. You're going to be able to trade these elements, and so sure, you should probably be able to trade the elements that your land is generating. You could potentially, it seems, part out even your coda. That's the idea, is to be able to take that land, part out, all its value, and look at it in different ways that, again, are superficial at right now. Coda, value. Artifact, value. I'd say it's not a bad time to look at artifacts, because a lot of the artifacts, again, no financial advice here ever, but a lot of artifacts land closer to the floor because they might not have a lot of other perceived value when it comes to the 3 stars of generation of petrified wood or something. And so you have a lot of people who don't quite know the value of anything. Nobody does, and neither do I. But these are just my observations, given, again, understanding who the developers are, where 10K TF is coming in on this, and where the Otherside generation possibilities are. And I think I'm excited to talk to some of my guests today about how these things can all come together. So the Explorer does take a little bit of time to load up. It is pretty intensive when it comes to what the the details are. And so this is the other side. This is the map, the full map to the other side. If you haven't been there, I know there's a lot of links, and so I'm going to be sharing a lot of those post-show. There's so many links to this. I mean, there's a blog to the second trip. There's Otherside. There's the summoning website. There's a lot going on, but at the center of this world is, oh bloody hell, it's not, is there. I'm not getting that. There it is. At the center is the yacht club, and so at 00 is the yacht club, and that's something that we know for certain. The land around it, this area here, has become known as the island, and so the lands to get to this island, has been highly sought after and very, very pricey, because you want to be, in traditional real estate, you want to be closer to the thing, right? You want to be right up there with all of the action, if you will, and certainly, in other ones that we've experienced in Metaverse, you being closer. Like, I have that land that, we went through together, buying with next to Steve Aoki and Snoop Dogg's land, because you're just like, oh wow, like, those are cool neighbors to have. It might not be the case here, and there's a lot of speculation that there might be some advantages of being on the island, sure, in terms of proximity, but there's a lot in the light paper that suggests that you can bring your lands together, and people aren't buying lands next to each other. They're so spread out that you're gonna have I think my land's like somewhere out here in this outer ring here, and so if I'm getting a second one and I get it over here, well, how is it going to be fused together? But that's something that they want to do, and so that puts into jeopardy the idea of being closer to center as being best. Now, being best in certain ways, I think that also there is the idea of where you're spawning, where you're generating out of, because there are needs for a marketplace. There's so many aspects to sorry. Oh no. I think I got rugged, guys. That was amazing. So I got rugged on my stream here, my studio audience stream. I apologize. And my rig is just doing a lot right now. It's got 3D avatars. It's got Otherside maps. So welcome if you are joining me on the video stream. So, and I apologize, I'll get to maybe some questions after the trip. So the idea here is, okay, this is the tricky part too. You see this dark stuff. Here's a massive speculation theory number one. We look at this and we see the numbers going out. And it's easy to see that the numbers spiral out this way. And so, if you're at 100,000, you're out here. You're at 00, you're in here. Animoca has done this before, and in the building of their metaverses, where they've given these areas, and 420 actually is over here-ish. There's 420. And so notice that 420 is on the edge of this. But you always think of body of water, because we look at these maps, and I think you sort of graft your understanding of like, okay, well, that's probably a body of water, and these are little islands, and we have that sensibility that we just kind of associate with it automatically. Animoca has never had that in sort of their thing, and when we're talking about having lands with other Animoca brands and projects, they've always held space within their maps, and that space has always not turned out to be water. It's meant to be a holding pattern, really, for other things. So what could those other things be? Well, perhaps they are, again, wild speculation theory. Number one, we've got a couple, we've got quite a few actually. And so having that idea of New Tokyo landing within the other side, for me, it's almost plain as day that there should be something here. And then you have like further expansion here of value, because that's the thing, is like you have prime real estate. And again, it's subjective, because there is the idea that you could, piece your lands together and spawn. But I also hold that you're going to want to be close to center as well, because there's going to be the support system of the other side. And that support system is inclusive of marketplaces, of, building tools, etc. So you're going to need to have an ability to spawn and portal to areas in the other side that give you access to them. And so what I love about this theory is, okay, so if we're all broken up, but what if, like, I'm in Oni, and I want to maybe go to the Oni village, and I could potentially spawn and portal to the Oni village, because in my community, I would have other people that I would love to trade with. I would love to hang out with, and that's part of the other side. The idea of, sort of the Animoca, has one version of the world, and they're only part of a partner of development on this thing. And so, I take that lead with a grain of salt, because I also see how the other side development is upending that. And the other side development has always been talked about to be about community, about hanging out with people all over the world, not to be siloed on your own land. And it's great that you can develop and build your own land, and make an economy out of it, make a business out of it. That's the metaverse promise, and it's exciting and fantastic. But it's also very, very siloed, and it puts a lot of pressure on people to bring people to your lands, and sometimes that's not super fun. Just like showing up at like your land, and the only option is to then go to somebody's land who maybe has the resources to build out and has a lot of capital to put together. Like we've seen in Decentraland, some very amazing, elaborate builds, and that's fantastic. That's lovely. But is it Web3 and is it empowering? It's really tough, because that's how I felt with the Sandbox. And with Sandbox, which is led by Animoca, is it feels really silent. Like, it's just like my land is undeveloped. I don't know how to, I gotta like voxelize my thing, and I have to have devs that I think have experience in this world to build out. And so that puts a lot of weird pressure on the build. And I can do it myself, and I can play around and have a little fun. But who's going to want to come to that? And so I think what New Tokyo does is it brings together all of these communities into a preset world. And so in this preset world, we have our communities. And so knowing so many Onis, I want to see them there. Like, I'm going to want to see, like, Bobby and Inktube and, like, all these people in game. That's exciting to me, to see my community in a space that I can portal to, into a world that I can portal to. And so as New Tokyo has, brought on so many partners, Pudgy Penguins and Cool Cats and World of Women. And so, like, all these great things, and they're continuing more with Renga. And so you have these great projects. Well, you're going to kind of want to hang out with your people and your communities. And I think that this is the great play, is you potentially could portal to those communities that have a build out, that have a sense of community already. And you could probably, devise, marketplace touchstones and tools at those community spaces, or, incentivize people to cross. And I think that could be exciting as well. But I think, starting from the core of those communities is quite powerful. And it's easy to see, again, it's going to land right on top of that obelisk. And when we're looking at those maps, and we know that 000 is the yacht club, and things, can get spread out. And it's not, those numbers, when we're looking at those numbers, are not super far spread out. 893, 12, 846. That's pretty central. Again, this is wild speculation in theory, but looking at those numbers, it's not 100,000, or it's not 97,000, putting you way out in the boonies. This is something that's going to be very central to the world. And so being central to the world could potentially have a lot of advantage, and being part of these communities, being part of 10KTF might ostensibly, seemingly grant you land, because we're looking at fragments. We're looking at, naming of a community like 893. And that would be a very good, I may be biased. I'm very biased here. It might be very good. You can see the Gigami in the background. If they were granted some lands. And so, but that's the central, theory. And I think that I'm emboldened by this because of the recent talk that Michael Figge had. And again, he said that he's not going to do this often. He's not going to. This is the first time he's ever spoken outwardly about the project, 10KTF or Yuga, and this is something that he says is probably not going to happen very often. Very reserved person, and it's probably best heard from his voice. And so this is just a clip from V-Man. Thank you, V-Man. Follow V-Man. He's always putting together great clips to help inform the community. One of those great 10KTFers. That really helps inform people. And of course, I'll get Rug for just a little bit as it tries to find the capacity to not just stream to you, but also playback. I think that's what's going to make the Otherside jump in a little challenging. I can already tell on my rig that I'm getting a little bit of a rug. And so probably at about in 12, 13 minutes, I'm going to have to jump onto my laptop just to access the Otherside experience. And so I'll have to cut this particular stream. But I'll join back afterwards and get a stronger sense of what everyone thought, and maybe bring on some others, because there was some interest in doing a recap version of the show. So that's getting rugged at the moment. I apologize. But it's a great talk, and I'll put the links again post-show down below, where Figge talks about this idea of community and about this idea of builders in the community, where as Yuga sleeps, as he sleeps, he would love that Otherside builds. And so giving those tools to the people, to the builders, to the community seems to be the priority. And that allows us to, again, re-examine the land in different ways, because we can see sort of at its surface, we got the traits, we got like, okay, this is going to give this much goo, this is going to give this much in terms of what they are. So let me bring up an OpenSea view of Otherside, because I wanted to look at some deeds with you guys. And again, we're not here to talk about price and floor and all that sort of stuff. We're talking about details, and it's gonna be a little challenging. I apologize because of how small those details are on this thing, but let's jump into the differentiation between this and that. It's just you can see there's stars on the top. Let's jump into this, and so you can see there's one star on the top here, and that means that it's 1 of 5, and that is a detail about its environment. And so when you look at the environmental tier 1 to 5, this, when the trailers first started, when we had Wagmi-san in the desert, and we had the Otherside showing their trailer in the desert, which I thought was kind of fun. It was like competing banjos almost. It was just you could tell 2 different teams worked on those videos, but about the same thing and about the same point of meeting. And so I think we're going to see a lot of that in the Otherside today, of those 2 worlds coming together in that desert. And that desert did have a coordinate, and I looked that coordinate up, and it was it was about here-ish. And it was so interesting. It was, you know, for me, I was like really getting super speculative. But like, I was like, oh, wow, like, you know, maybe you guys can see that. Okay, good. You can see a little dot there. So it was about right here where that desert was. And that sort of, for me, I started looking at, okay, well, what's around it? Because we know that the yacht club is in the biogenic swamp, but there's biogenic swampland everywhere. We know that, you know, Wagme-san was in this particular coordinate. Sorry, maybe it was the other side that was saying Curtis was at that coordinate. And then Wagme-san just happened to be in a very similar land in the desert with the same bone structures. But I assumed that it was about here. And so I started really speculating of like, okay, well, should I get land around here? Is this where New Tokyo is going to be? But there didn't seem to be any corroboration in terms of lands. It's not like there's all desert lands around there. So it's not like they were just sort of in pieces and parts. And so that to me is the most curious thing. All of the different lands are everywhere. They're scattered everywhere. So you could go to, you know, any point and you go to its direct neighbor and you have volcano on one side, and then you have, biogenic swamp on the other. And then you have, again, this idea of environmental tier. We see that these photos or these drawings are just simply representations of 3D environments. This can be so misleading when you're looking at this because you're looking at scale of a 1 star. And if you look at a 5 star, you can see a lot more detail. And so, just grab, I know this is like a 3. And so this is how much I'm looking at this stuff. And so this is a 3 star. And so you can see, just a little bit more detail. But when we were looking at the trailers in VFX, you do this a lot, especially if you're doing like spaceships and sort of things that don't seem real. You give them perspective. You give them perspective by adding either a figure, a human type figure. And so even the coda, I think, is very grossly improportional to the land because they want you to see it. So the idea that the land is all the same size and it just has different, elements to it, I think is very misleading. I think when you're looking at environmental tiers, I think you're looking at size and the expanse of it. The details of it are representational, but if you put it to a scale figure, you can see it's much bigger than I think we were originally imagining. And I think we'll look into some of what that means and step into a crazy theory that I have right now. But, we're looking at these ratings that we have here, these stats of environmental tiers. And so you're like, okay, great. Maybe it's, wide enough. The bigger the environments, I've been noticing you get a bit more with resources, typically, as well. So that's something, again, it's just very small observations. Sure, there's a lot. They're called 6 zeros, like basically 6 of them that have nothing that are out there that are 5s, but in terms of size. But I think that there's something that we're finding out more and more of as we go in world and in game that we're going to start discovering is that the expanse of it. So a 5 star is just going to be much bigger. Like it's just you're going to have more real estate, if you will, to operate with. And I think that isn't quite seen in terms of valuation yet. There's a lot of 4 stars, one of them which I picked up. Again, this is not financial advice, this is me. I was just like, that was too close to the floor. And I was just like, I don't think people understand that. And then also there's another trait that I've been looking at that I don't think people understand as well. And that is when you have, again, in 3D world, if you are doing a spaceship, the Death Star, how big is the Death Star? Oh, the Death Star is massive. It's so big and it's coming over your head. It's just so big. Well, how do you understand the scale of it? If you look at those clips, you'll see they have to put something that humans understand in terms of scale. And so typically what's done in like spaceships and the like is they'll put windows, doors, windows. These are things that that little guy there, that back there. Okay, that's about a door size. And, you understand sort of scale when it comes to models. And so you're like, okay, this is a really big thing. In each of the Otherside Got 5 minutes, guys. In each of these, I'm going to get through this theory, and then I'm going to jump into the other side. And apologies, I'm going to have to cut stream and then come back and do a recap after. Hit me up down below if you need a key to get in. I have one. I was going to give it away to someone on the show, and unfortunately, I apologize. I got rugged on the Twitter stream for the spaces. But hit me up down below. I have one key that I'm going to give away in about 4 minutes when I cut the stream, and then jump onto the other side login. But I'm going to leave you with this really crazy theory that I kind of doubled down on, because I looked at Door, right? And I think in that trailer of the other side where Curtis and Dakota walk, they go into the door. And so every one of these lands has a door. Now, where does that door go? And so that to me said, well, that they're going to go to someplace like, every one of these structures, it can't be that small in there. It can't be, just like, oh, it's a tree. Like, you turn around and that's no fun. No, you're going to want to build. And Rida, also on Twitter, had blown my mind by developing this concept that there were layers underneath. So when you go in the door, you go down. And so it's just like, I was like, yes. And then in the ground, there could be more layers and more expanse. And so this hidden trait down here, I don't want to call it hidden, but you really had to look if you went to stats that detail the environments, which ostensibly, is sort of the width of you. And the depth of it had a trait called sediment tier that hadn't been detailed in, some of the visuals that were a bit very, straightforward. This sediment tier was very curious to me because, you might have to limit the number of layers you go down, because if not, somebody could just get a tier 1 land and just build 100 layers down. And that could cause problems. Just, in terms of programming, what have you. And so with those limitations, do we have this idea that there is potentially 3 layers underneath the land? And so sediment tier 1 is a preponderance, really. But there's a fair amount that have 3 of 3. And so that's kind of where I sort of doubled down in terms of how I was approaching my my land buy. I wanted something with some expanse, some depth. I wanted all 3. I wanted all 3 sediment layers, because it was something that had not been talked about and nobody was looking at. But I think in terms of design, it made sense to me when I'm looking at doorways, when I'm looking at these things. I need to build out more things. I'm going to have portals in those doorways to other layers, and those other layers could be capped potentially by a trait. That trait would have to be sediment layer. And so that's my wild theory. I'm going to be jumping into the waiting room. You're going to see the wild PFP of mine there. And again, Punk 78, V-Man, and LinkedIn. Give them a follow on Twitter. They're doing this great work, as well as this entire community. And that's what I love most about this experience, doing this show with you guys. Please like, subscribe, all that good stuff, because I love this community, and I love how the merging of these two communities is coming together in this very, very powerful, very, very visual and super fun way, because I think not only are we going to land and get involved in a fun game together, but I think this game is meant to develop our communities at its core. And so I'm super excited for it. I'll see you guys after this trip.